Okay, so we're on the second to last section. This is the most time-consuming section. It's parent financials. So most people will be able to provide their parents' tax information, and hopefully you can either get a copy of their 2019 taxes or use the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. Because I said on the parent demographic section of this sample FAFSA that my parents do not have social security numbers, I'm not going to be able to use the data retrieval tool. But if you can use it for either yourself or your parents, I highly recommend doing it because it's going to minimize the chances that you later have to go back and provide additional information to the colleges you've applied to. Okay, so I have my actual 2019 taxes, which I am going to show you so that you can learn how to decipher these questions. So you can ask them if they've completed their taxes, ask them to provide them to you, and once you have them, most people use an IRS 1040, but let me show you where to find what type of tax return it is. Okay, so this is a typical tax form. So you can see there that it is a form 1040, and that's what the vast majority of people file. Say that they filed an IRS 1040. Their tax filing status is going to be whatever they put on this form. So it's the very first line, and you can see that there are a bunch of little boxes at the very top of the 1040 form that matches what you're being asked in the FAFSA. So I am not married, and so I filed as single, but it'll be different for every person. So this is where you would use the IRS Data Retrieval Tool if you were eligible to use it. It would take you to the IRS website, and your parents would have to put in some information in order to link their IRS taxes to the FAFSA. I cannot encourage you highly enough to use that tool if you're able. So the first question is always going to be, what was your parents' adjusted gross income for 2019? But then it says, this amount was found on IRS Form 1040, line 8B. So you may have no idea what an adjusted gross income is, but you can see, and these are screenshots, so I could blur out my personal information, but this is all on the first page. You can literally just go to line 8B, and you can see that it says this is your adjusted gross income, and you can go to the box that says 8B and pull that number and type it in. So my adjusted gross income, because I was a student for half the year and working half the year, is relatively low. It's $14,559. So if your parents are filing jointly, you're going to have to put what they earned separately on this question. So it's asking how much did your parent 1 earn, and then how much did your parent 2 earn. And so because I filed as single and there aren't 2 people on my return, it won't match exactly, but it's just IRS Form 1040, line 1. So we can go and find that. And then a Schedule 1 is a special addition that your parents might have on their taxes. Most people don't have a Schedule 1, and most people don't have an IRS Schedule K1. So for the vast majority of people, you're literally just going to go to IRS Form 1040, line 1, and see what it says. So on my IRS 1040, line 1, that says wages, salaries, tips, etc., you can see that I earned $14,482. And we're just going to say, for ease of calculation, that parent 2 earned 0. Okay. So this is asking, you indicated that your parents filed an IRS 1040. Did your parents file a Schedule 1? And so that would just be the third page of their taxes. If there is no third page, and you can ask them about this if they filed a Schedule 1. The click here for more information is often kind of helpful because chances are you don't know what a Schedule 1 is. Schedule 1 is used to report income or adjustments to income that can't be entered directly on Form 1040. Again, you're going to look and see if they have one, and if they don't, you're going to say no. So because the parent income that I entered was quite low, and usually it's going to give you this option if it's below about $25,000 a year, you will have the option to skip the remaining questions. You should always say yes to that so that you can skip them, but I'm going to say no just so that I can show you what those questions ask in case you aren't given the option to skip. Okay, so now it's asking, enter the amount of your parents' income tax for 2019. This is the total amount of IRS Form 1040, line 14, minus Schedule 2, line 2. And so again, Schedule 2 is an additional form that some people will have on their taxes, but most people will not. So you can just go through what their taxes are, and if you don't see a page that says Schedule 2 at the top, then they don't have one. I do not have a Schedule 2, so I'm literally just going to go to line 14 on my taxes, and that is on the second page. And it says 0, so I'm going to say 0. These are some special types of income that most people do not have, but your family may have. So the first one is if you have a family member or a parent who's in the military, they may have received combat pay. So you're going to have to ask them about that. If they were not in the military, they did not receive combat pay for sure. Student college grant and scholarship aid reported to the IRS in your parents' income. I actually do have this because I am an AmeriCorps service member, but most people do not. Education credits. This is saying education credits are on IRS Form 1040, Schedule 3, line 3. I do not have a Schedule 3, line 3 on my taxes, so I can assume that this is 0. Untaxed portion of IRA distributions and pensions from IRS Form 1040, lines 4A plus 4C minus 4B and 4D. Okay, so that's a little confusing, but let's go over to IRS Form 1040, line 4, and see what it says. So that's on the first page. It looks like I did not have any IRA distributions, but I could, if I needed to, just add together 4A and 4C, and then subtract 4B and 4D. And if there were numbers on that in those boxes, that's exactly what I would do. So for me, that's going to be 0. IRA deductions and payments, you're going to go to IRS 1040 Schedule 1, which most people don't have, but if you do, you're going to go to the Schedule 1 and then add up lines 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Just so that you know, this is what a Schedule 1 form looks like. So you can consult this if you need to, and your parents have this as a part of their taxes. And then the last one is tax-exempt interest income from IRS Form 1040, line 2A. So I'm going to go to line 2A and see what it says. So for a second, I thought that I did have something in box 2A because I was looking at the right-hand column where most of the boxes are, but I was actually looking at box 2B. So be careful when you're doing this. You can see in 2B I have $196, but in 2A I don't have anything. So I'm going to put 0 on my FAFSA. 0. So this is asking for child support your parents paid, but not for the kids you already reported on the FAFSA. So the siblings you already mentioned, it wouldn't be for them, but the most common example of where you would have something for this is, let's say your parents are divorced, you live with your mom is remarried, and your stepdad pays child support for other children that do not live with you. That would really be, I think, one of the only circumstances where you would put something in this box. From work under a cooperative education program offered by a college. Most people don't have this because they don't work for a college and don't have a cooperative education program, but if they do have some involvement in a college, you may want to ask them this question. And then taxable earnings from need-based employment programs such as federal work study. So I did have that, but most of your parents will not because they were not college students. And these are all things that are not going to be listed on their tax forms. These are things you're going to have to ask them separately. So it's asking if they received any child support. So if you don't know or they aren't totally sure, you can do a little calculation. Most people receive child support monthly, so if you receive $120 in child support a month, every month in 2019, you're just going to multiply that times 12. If the person paying child support missed some months, then, calculate that accordingly, but this is just going to be your best estimate. Housing, food, and living allowances paid to members of the military, clergy, and others. I've never seen anybody do this, but if you have a family member who's in the military, or a parent, who's in the military or the clergy, it might be relevant. And then payment to tax-deferred pensions, you're going to find this on your parents' W-2 form, which they would have used to fill out their taxes and is probably with their taxes. A lot of people don't have it, but if your parents do, you need to answer this question. And then veteran non-education benefits, so that would not be like a GI Bill, but it could be disability or dependency compensation. So again, if your parent is a veteran, check in with them about this. And then this last question is asking about income that wasn't reported anywhere else, and they give the example of workers' compensation. So that would be if a parent was injured while working, they may be paid some money through workers' compensation. Disability is if a parent has a disability and receives money from the government for that to support themselves, you would report that here. I'm gonna skip. And then it's gonna ask about your parents' assets. So again, I'm being given the opportunity to skip questions about your parents' assets. If you're given this option, you should always say yes, but I'm gonna say no to show you these questions. So it's asking what your parents' total current balance of savings, cash, and checking accounts. So just ask them to look at their bank accounts and add together how much is in there. The net worth of your parents' investments, including real estate, not your parents' home. So most people don't own multiple homes if they own any at all. But if your parents have a second home or perhaps a stock market account, this would have to be included. So an investment property would have to be included. Rental property, trust funds, something called Uniform Gifts to Minor Act, which I'm not sure what that is, money market funds, mutual funds, certificates of deposit, stocks, stock options, bonds, and then as well as 529 college saving plans and things like that. So be sure if your parents do have things like that they add them up and report them on this question, but if your family is relatively low income, they most likely don't have any of these. So I'm gonna say that my parents is 1,000, that they don't have any investments, and then this is asking about the net worth of your parents' businesses or investment firms. So if your parent owns a business that has more than 100 employees, you have to report its value here. If they have a small business with fewer than 100 employees, 100 full-time employees, then you do not have to report it. So if your family owns a restaurant in Sanford, chances are you do not have 100 or more full-time employees. And that's the end of Parent Financials. Great work. Only one section to go.